Hey everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative, and we are going to do another project using the mix to mold ceramic resin. We're going to use some of the Jdiction resincrete pigments, and we're going to use one of the mix to mold pigment inks. I had something interesting happen with a piece I made, and I wanted to show it to you, and I want to see if we can recreate it. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to be able to pull it off, but it fascinated me, so I wanted to share it with you. Before I do that, I had shown in another video some pieces I had made using the resincrete pigment, and why I'm showing these to you again is I want to show you what each side looks like. So you'll notice this was the brown, and this is how the top side, when I took it out and let it dry, then we got a softer, I'll say a more, not a cocoa, that's not, more of a tan color than this really dark brown. And these have been drying for, 3 days now? And I thought it would be interesting for you to see what one side looks versus the other. And it could be the potential that, one, I didn't mix it well enough before I poured it, or maybe it's the fact that this wasn't exposed to air right away and this was. I don't know, but I wanted to show it to you. And I'll show you the other pieces. So orange, and then a paler, more of a, well, it is an orange, but I'd say a peachy orange now. The green to green. The pink one pretty much stayed pink. There wasn't really much of a difference from one side to the other with the pink, which I find it interesting, but maybe it's just because it's a lighter color. And then this is the purple. And then this is the softer side of that purple. Again, I'm not sure what the deal is with why it does it, but I thought it would be interesting for you to see. And maybe if you've worked with these pigments, you've noticed the same thing. And I had thought too, maybe if I sanded this down a little bit, I would get rid of the darker color, but obviously I haven't done that to see what the results are. I simply wanted to show you how interesting I had found that. But my really interesting piece, when I poured this mold the other day, I had ideas of coming up with a really cool design. And when I initially took the piece out, it wasn't cool, but that changed. What I did was I had used 3 colors. Today I'm actually using 4 pigment colors and white. When I did it the other day, I poured my white in first, and then I poured the other colors in and around it. I then took a stirring stick of some sort, not this one, but then I mixed the colors, not harsh and not really detailed, but, you know, I sort of swirled around because I wanted to have the colors, you know, have a design on the other side when I took this out. Now, I need you to use your imagination for a minute. This is the piece, and you'll notice how dark those colors are, and the blue on the bottom took over yellow, and then I used red. I believe it was red I used in this. Anyway, I had thought, ooh, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. So what I did was I started tapping, and I got some of the colors sort of to pull in around the sides and up through the back. You might notice a little bit of that here. But I had, like I said, I had mixed it, not hard in any, you know, great detail, but I had mixed it because I wanted to make sure the color came through. So here's where I need you to use your imagination. Initially, when I did that, and the next day when I took it out, I took it out a few hours later. Anyway, really all I had was this here, and then sort of these little sort of swirly marks, and that was it. And I thought, oh, what a drag, right? The rest of the colors haven't come through. The next day, I looked at this, and all this additional color had come through the white. And I thought, wow, that's really cool that it didn't show up initially when I took it out of the mold, but for whatever reason, when it was drying, it actually ended up pulling the colors to the top here. I so wish I had a picture of it, before. And I think when I do this piece, I'm going to take pictures of it. I'm going to do the same. I'm attempting to do the same thing, and then I'll take some pictures and show the progression. This has been drying for about 2 days now, not 3, 2. And I'm suspecting this is as far as it's going to go because most of the water will have evaporated out of it. But it fascinated me that the color would come through like it did. And I just need you to use your imagination. There was really nothing down here except white when I first took it out of the mold. And now it has pulled color up through it. More down here than up here, but it pulled some of the color through there as well. So I don't know. I don't know why it did that, but we're going to try and recreate it because I was shocked. I think it's very cool that it's done it. And it just goes to show that it's sort of almost like resin. When you work with resin, you never know what you're going to get because the resin does its own thing. And this did its own thing, which I think is extremely cool. Here's to potentially the same thing happening. So this is going to have to be a truly a piece-by-piece video to see what happens if I can recreate sort of the steps this went through. So let's put that off to the side now. And as I say, you kind of have to use your imagination for how it looked initially because it seriously was not that colored when I first took it out of the mold. Okay, we're using yellow, dark, deep, it says deep green, blue, and this says blue as well, but as we can tell, it's a much lighter shade of blue. Should I be using different colors? I don't know. These are just the ones I randomly picked. White's going to be the biggest part, and then I've got about 20-25 mils of the other colors that I'll be mixing in here. I figure this takes about 180 mils. I had done around 173 when I did this piece, and it wasn't quite to the top filled. So I'm going to use 180 and see where we end up. I just want to knock some of the dust out of that. Okay. So we need to mix them. We know that we have a limited period of time. One of my other channel members had indicated when I've done videos for the mixed mold that they mix their colors in the water before they mix it in. And actually I did that the other day when I did that piece. I mixed it first, which actually saves you a little bit of time. So I'm going to start doing that so I can avoid things not mixing up. And one thing I forgot to get, so I'm going to go get it now, although I may not use it except for the white, is my beater, if you want to call it that. Okay. It takes a bit of time to clean off between colors, and I don't really want to mix my colors that way, so we may only use it for the white. Might as well get that out of the way so I don't trip over it. Okay, so let's just get some color in. I have shook these up. And what did I put in? I think I put, I want to say about 5 drops of each color into the water. So we'll do the same. Now that was about 6. It doesn't, again, the density of the color, that's yours to decide. You need to figure out how dark or how light you want colors. And then we'll mix the colors up, and then and interestingly enough, I have to admit, I like working with epoxy resin a little bit more than this. I always feel like I'm frantically trying to get colors mixed in and whatnot and poured before it starts to cure on its own. And I have found in the past that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to count, that if I get going too fast, I get nervous doing it. I shouldn't get nervous doing my art, should I? But it's like, oh, I'm on a timer. I've got to get this mixed up really, really quickly. And I think that sort of takes away, because art's supposed to be something that is relaxing and calming, not something you're, rushing 90 miles an hour with. And I find I do that too sometimes when I'm doing pieces for clients. I get more anxious doing for them than when I'm doing things like this for myself. Now, I don't know if you've found that. If you do, please comment below. I'd like to know that I'm not alone in that. So we'll just mix these up. The screen's very pretty. I'll be curious to know how this turns out as far as coloring goes. And I shouldn't end up with a mess of color. Green, yellow, and blue do go together. So here's hoping that it works out the way I want it to. I think I might put a little bit more in this blue, just to make it a little darker. I know I've got the other blue, so I'd like this to be a little more deep. And it's almost got a royal blue color to it. Come on, out you come. Ah, a big air bubble on that one. So I wonder what you guys are getting up to today. I've had snow. We had a day and a half, 2 days of rain, and now I have snow on the ground again. It snowed last night. I'm sure it'll be gone probably by the weekend. But as I've mentioned before, it is interesting the weather we're getting. And I know there was one video I had been watching of another artist, and they're down in the States, and I think there was concern over really bad weather and potential of tornadoes. Now, I didn't hear that they had had any, but I am grateful that all I had to deal with was really high winds, which in and of themselves can be dangerous. But I don't have any huge trees around my house, so I don't have that to concern myself. Okay, we're ready to go. Now I'm trying to think, which way did I want to do this? I think I did the white first the other day, so let's do that. I've measured out my water already, so we're just going to pour that in there. I think there's about 50 mils of white in here. So we'll get this done. And as I say, I'm not going to mention again. I'm just going to mix my colors and not talk about anything that doesn't help my cause. So let's just mix this up. I'd like to say it's soothing doing this, but again, it's get it done, get it done, get it done. I'm going to add, well, leave that for now. I might add a little bit more water before I go to pour it, just because it's the first one I'm mixing up. So let's do the yellow. And they are such pretty colors. Now, make sure you mix these in really well, and that you work on not having any of the powder that doesn't get mixed in. I don't like clumps in my product, so we'll do that. I'll mix them all again, like I'll stir them again before I pour them in. And I sometimes think adding a little bit of extra water helps, well, I like to think slow down the curing process, but I don't know. I may be fooling myself on that. So what have you guys been up to? What kind of artwork have you been doing? What creative endeavors have you been doing? And it can be anything. Remember, creativity lives in magical places. So your creativity could be cooking, it could be sewing, it could be writing, it could be building cards. What else? Well, as I mentioned in my one video, it could be cutting grass. And some of you who live in the States where it's summer, I'll say summer year round. You know, have you thought about cutting your grass in really cool ways in order to appreciate the creativity that it lives everywhere? This blue. Some of these colors are really pretty. I think I did well picking what I did. And of course, always remember to scrape the bottom and the sides to make sure you get everything mixed up. And the light blue. And it might not hurt. I've got some granules left in the bottom of that light blue one, so I might have needed to mix it just a little bit better in the water. And this is definitely a baby blue color. Almost a, well, not quite a robin's egg blue. It's lighter, so I'm going to throw a couple more drops in this because it is very pale in comparison to the Jdiction. Which, if you want that, that's totally cool. right? You got to decide what works best for you, but it definitely is a light, I'd say a pale robin egg blue. Okay, let's go back to my white. Oh, sugar shucks. Okay, so like I said, this is starting to set, so I am going to throw some more water in this because we don't want this setting. So I'm willing to add some more water in it just to mix it up a little bit. And maybe that has something to do with it. Okay, so the other day when I did this, we'll just pour this out now, throw that off to the side, is I just basically poured it in the center, and then I figured, okay, I'll just pour the other colors on top of it. So I'm going to do that again. And then we'll mix up. And I poured a little bit around the side. So you got to really work with this stuff fast, people. Okay, let's just do this. I'm going to pour similar to what I did the other day. I'm hoping at some point they come out with stuff like the Jdiction has, where you can get some that's, you have more time to work with it. That'd be really brilliant. Yeah, see, it's starting to set. I'm not willing to risk losing this. See, I'm getting nervous now. Okay, so let's move this around. So at least I can flatten it out, right? And pour a little bit more water in that. Just a teeny bit. Okay. And then, now I didn't do this as much the other day, but I'm doing it because I want to make sure it flattens out. Yeah, so as I said, I think it'd be really cool if they all came out with something that you had more than, a few moments to work with it. Now, it doesn't seem like I've got enough in here. I feel like I did 180 mils of this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to take this and we're just going to move it around a little bit. Now it's already starting to set. Okay, so like with my turtle, we're just going to move this around like this. I just want flat. If nothing else, I want it flat. Get those right out of my way. So curious, that I did 180 mils. And it hasn't filled it up, but that's okay. And I think what I might do is with this one, but I won't do it until after. I'll let this set, and then I think I am going to pour some more to get the base flat. So I swirled it around, not a lot. Once it has set, don't do that. Don't pull it away from the edges, not like I just did. Okay. We are going to leave this now, and I'll leave it for an hour, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some more so I can level this out because I want it level. And then once that is set, we will come back and we'll take it out of the mold and see what it does. And hopefully with the colors setting like they were starting to, it does okay. As I said, I'd really like to see some of these companies come out with, like Jdiction has with the product, that you have about 30 minutes to work with it. I think that's how long, versus this, 5 to 6 minutes, because it makes it challenging when you want to use colors. It's setting so fast that one color starts to set before you've got the others mixed, which isn't helpful. And maybe, there's not a lot they can do about that, but I'm hoping in the future they have something. Anyways, there's where we're at right now. I'm going to leave it, and I will come back to you once it's cured enough that I can take it out and we'll have a look at it. I am back, and I had a bit of a mishap here, you'll see, and it just goes to show that you really do need to pour this stuff all at one time instead of trying to do it in bits and pieces like I have. Don't do that. Do it all at once, or make darn sure that everything's completely dry before you put another layer on. I put another coat on this because I wanted to fill it up, added some color to it, and as immediately once I laid it down, it just started to harden up straight away, and it pulled. I'll lift this up for you. It might be hard to see, but it pulled away from the edge of the mold. And I thought, you can't do any more to this. You got to stop doing what you're doing. Before we take this out of the mold, we are going to look at, I'd shown you a couple of pieces before, and I took them and I sanded them down a little bit. You can't really see as much of the purple. I had wiped it off with a wet wipe, so it took off some of the darker color as well. But I wanted you to see how sanding it would get it, not as close, but it would take some of the darkness away from that. So again, it's up to you. It's a personal preference, how you want your pieces to look. I just wanted to see what I could do from a sanding perspective, and this is what the brown one looks like. Obviously, if you're going to sand something, I used a coarse piece of sandpaper on this. You would want to probably use something that isn't as coarse, and then you're going to want to probably put some sort of UV resin on it or epoxy resin on it, just to help make it look nice again. Or I don't know about a sealer, that might help, but again, you would want to use a piece of sandpaper that doesn't leave this kind of marking on your piece for sure. Use something that's, I would say a 600 grit or higher if you're going to do that. As I was playing around, I also decided I would make this piece here. I had thought when I did this final coat of the mix to mold that I might have some left over, so I thought, well, I'll do this as well. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, so I am not giving up on this piece as much as the back of this is a disaster waiting to happen. I am planning on sanding this down, getting it not completely level by any means, but sanding it down so at least this piece that I put on here is nice and smooth. And then my idea is to take UV resin once I've got this shaped the way I want to, and putting UV resin in and around the rest of it, just so I can use this as a functioning piece. So let's see what this looks like, even though I will say, honestly, I messed this up, but that's okay. You know what not to do now. So, alrighty. Now it's going to be interesting. As you can see here, oh, I have to laugh at this. There's nothing in the white here. We're going to have to let this sit for a day to see if any of the colors, because you had seen, I took my silicone piece here and I ran it through the back. I don't know if I got it down far enough, but we're going to see if this doesn't have the color pull through. I'm really hoping it does. I'm hoping that some of the color underneath this comes up. Interestingly enough, there's no swirls. I don't know whether I didn't just get down into it enough, or the other thing that might be happening with this piece is you had seen as well that my colors were starting to harden, and that might have something to do with it, that I wasn't able to get down into it enough. So this is going to be an interesting piece to see whether or not the results I got on the other tray I can get here. As mentioned, I think it'd be really cool if they were to come out with this material so you had longer to work with it. I know in the hardware stores you can get like a plaster of Paris, and they have some that will allow you to work with them longer. So that would be really great for these companies that haven't, only have the ones that are, currently 6 to 8 minutes if they're that long. And what I find so curious is there have been other channels that I've watched where they've worked with something like this, whether it's the resincrete or, well, I'll just say the resincrete. And it feels to me like they're taking, more than the allotted time to work with it. I'm thinking, how is it not setting? How are you able to pour that? And I don't know the answer to that. Anyway, we're going to wait and see what happens with this. It's fairly heavy once the water starts to come out of it. And as I say, I'm really hoping some of the colors come out. If not, again, this is a piece that I decide, do I want to put a stencil in the center of this? Do I want to put a tattoo down and then cover it with resin? I'm not really sure. I could also maybe I was thinking maybe if I put some beads in here and then actually, instead of having there being an indent here, that it was just level with the lip. I'm not sure. Anyway, we are going to let that sit now for about a day. I don't know whether I'll add to the video or whether or not I will just post pictures on my Facebook page, or what I'll do is take a picture and use it as, my screen capture for my YouTube video on this. I don't know. We can guess at whether or not it's going to, any of the other colors are going to come through. There was the blue, so we've got the blue and the green showing. There was a yellow, and there was a lighter blue. So I guess we'll have to see. And the only other thing that I might do, and I haven't done this yet, is when you use the terrazzo chips, you have to sand this down to get the colors to come through. And I'm wondering if that might be something I consider doing. And I could maybe see even doing it with this one to see if I get any more out of it. If I can, bring the colors up a little bit more, it might be an interesting test. I want you to see that. So we'll have to, yeah, I made a mess of that. That's okay. I like to learn from making mistakes. Now with this one, I used another product. This is stamping ink by Stampin' Up. It is a water-based product as far as I know, and this is rich razzleberry. I mixed this in with my water and then put it in, and then I added some of the resincrete pigment in this as well. And then we poured it. So let's see how this looks. And the other thing I did with this, and it may or may not come up, is I put some pigment powders on the inside of the mold before I poured it. And sometimes getting these out of the molds is fun. And anyone who's worked with some of these molds, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. I don't want to turf it anywhere. Okay. All right. So I wasn't going for anything really clean, if you will, when I was putting the mica powder on this silicone piece. There's still a lot of it on here, so I'm gonna have to get that clean. You'll be able to see it, and you can see on my hands I'm getting some of the powder. Again, I was playing. I wanted to see what would happen if I did that, and I thought I was going to have some left over. But again, it gives it that sort of antique-y look. So it's going to be very curious, again, as this dries, and once it is dry, how the colors have decided to play and whatnot. So yeah, I just did that as an extra little piece for this video. Well, that's all I've got. I will work on this piece that I sort of severely messed up, and this is what not to do. Aren't you glad you have people like me showing you what not to do? Anyway, sometimes you have to do these, I'll call them big mistakes in order to learn. And I don't mind doing them, although this did frustrate me a little bit. I'll be totally honest. Watch and stay tuned, whether it's I add to my video, which I don't think I'm going to, or I just take a picture of this. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with this. And if it doesn't come up in the next day, I might just take some sandpaper and sand it down a bit and see if I can't pull the color up. Or it may be, and it may, that the white is too centralized and started to harden way too quickly, and I won't get the same results. But I wasn't expecting the results from the other tray, so who knows. Anyway, thank you for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and if you've had any projects that have gone totally sideways, feel free to share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Take care, and bye for now.